It's 6 p.m. Eastern. It's time for the wrap. And welcome to the show, everybody. I am Joe Concha, joined by Forbes columnist and co-host of Steele and Unger on SiriusXM Radio, Rick Unger. We also have a top attorney from the city of brotherly love, some call it Philadelphia. Heather Hansen is here. Welcome. And finally, he is a rabbi and founder of thewisdomdaily.com. Brad Hirschfield joins us again. Thank you, sir, for being here. Appreciate it. Anyway, I know that we all had to cancel our water skiing plans that we had this afternoon because it's so lovely here in New York City. Hit 22 today, but lots to talk about instead. Let's go to the Daily Download. And President Obama on the receiving end of a surprising blow to his executive action on immigration today, when a federal judge agreed to temporarily put a hold on the order and a lawsuit by a coalition of 26 states to permanently stop that order as it goes through the courts. Interesting. So to get some clarity on what the decision really means, we are joined by former federal prosecutor Sidney Powell. He is the author of License to Lie. Sidney, I'm sorry. She is the author of License to Lie. We have obviously never met before. Exposing corruption in the Department of Justice. Thanks for joining us, Sidney. We really appreciate that. And we have your book up on the screen right now for my error, and I will at least push it 4 times during this interview. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sure. So the White House said that they would appeal the U.S. District Judge Andrew Hansen's decision, but will the case reach the court, the circuit court anyway, New Orleans, or the Supreme Court before Wednesday, when Homeland Security Department has planned to start taking applications under that new amnesty?
Oh, no, there's no way it can be decided in that length of time. It will take some significant briefing, and the court will want to give it careful review. The judge entered a 123-page opinion. It was entered by Judge Andrew Hannon in Brownsville, Texas, who's done a great job in his research and writing in this decision, and talks about the significant damage that the states will incur from this executive action.
Are you surprised by the decision?
No, I'm just relieved that an Article 3 judge stepped up and did what an Article 3 judge is supposed to do, and that's act as the third and equal branch of government and stop unlawful conduct, which is what he's done.
Well, the president and certainly the administration seemed to be surprised. They actually put out a statement at 3 a.m. last night. They couldn't even wait till the sun came up. They were so shocked by the decision. Do you think we'll see deportations of illegal immigrants that were granted protection under the executive order, or just everything stay status quo?
No, I think, in fact, one of the issues the judge addressed was the fact that this will simply maintain the status quo. The problem with the executive order is not one of deportations. It was one of conferring benefits on people who are not citizens and going outside the law to do that, because Congress had expressly rejected the remedies that President Obama took action on unilaterally.
And Sidney, I don't know if you heard this, but the National Day Labor Organization Network, they called the ruling judicial vigilantism. Do you agree with that?
Heavens no. It's what an Article 3 judge is supposed to do, act as a check and balance on full executive action.
And finally, do you think, Sidney, that this executive order will stand when all is said and done?
I think the executive order won't stand. I think the action by Judge Hannon will stand.
Well, excellent. Well, Sidney, we appreciate you joining us via Skype. Thanks so much. Guys, can we get the book up again as far as that's concerned? Do we have the graphic? There we go. License to Lie, Exposing Corruption in the Department of Justice. Sidney Powell joined us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it once again.
Thank you, Joe.
Now, fortunately, we have a bunch of attorneys here, which will help out in this situation, and that's why they're on our panel. Heather Hansen, Rick Unger. Heather, you heard Sidney Powell. Do you agree?
I do. I think that the decision was so thoughtful. 123 pages. He went through the reason that Texans had standing, that people are actually being damaged by this executive order. The interesting thing to me was that he founded this decision not based on the Constitution, but based solely on the fact that the Administrative Procedures Act wasn't followed. President Obama should have, under the Administrative Procedures Act, given people the opportunity to comment. Had he done that, we wouldn't be talking about the fact that this is now allowing immigrants to get tax money. We wouldn't be talking about the fact that this allows immigrants to vote. We would have talked about that before the order went through. So I think that this decision was really well thought out, and that the Fifth Circuit, which is a very conservative court, is going to uphold this decision.
Checks and balances on display, Rick.
I agree actually with Heather's point of view with respect to the judge's approach to it. He surprised me. I actually read what he wrote. It was intelligent. He took an angle that I would not have expected, kind of effective. I also agree that it's likely to stand when it gets to the appellate level. I do think that this is something that will get to the Supreme Court because it does go to the meat of executive orders. Look, this has always been a close call. As an attorney, I could have argued either side of this case with considerable ease. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But he points to this judge for not writing a stupid opinion.
Right, and this afternoon, Eric Holder actually said we always expected this to get to the
Yeah,
Supreme
they weren't
Court.
shocked.
I think that everyone expected this to happen. I think it was more quickly than expected, which is why you saw the 4 a.m. response to it, because I think the administration was surprised. But I think that this is what was expected, and it will follow the route that it should follow, because ultimately this is something that has to be decided.
No, I'm not a lawyer, but I've watched enough shows and seen enough movies. Few Good Men is one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, me too.
I know all about precedent, at least, and this is going to set the tone as far as when it does get to the Supreme Court, which you believe it will, for years to come, as far as other presidents acting in this way.
Well, but the thing is, it's the way that he did it. You know, they're not talking about the constitutionality. They're talking about the fact that he didn't open it up to review, which is sort of typical of this president. He doesn't like to talk about things.
It's not crystal clear that an executive order of this nature has to be done under the administration's act. So you can't just state that as a
But Rick,
as
would
a
you
fact.
agree that actually for something this important, that's simply going the route of executive order, whether you agree with the conclusion or not, is not the thing to do. And that, Joe, I think is really the central issue here, is that the procedure here is about more than procedures.
That's
the
right.
procedure is about an ethos of how we're going to deal with the big divisive issues that we face in this country. And I'm not taking a position, what yes or no on the conclusion, but I know that historically, when leadership brings its followership along, the conclusions we reach are
remember
better.
something.
And that didn't happen here.
Remember something that's not often remembered. When the president issued his executive order, he made it crystal clear and continues to make it clear that he will rip it up. Wait, let me finish. The minute Congress does their job, which they refuse to do even as we sit here today.
Heather,
That's
final word.
not the way it works.
Yes, it is the way it works.
It's not the way it works. You don't pass executive orders because Congress isn't doing their job.
Actually,
You work
that's
with
almost
Congress.
always why presidents pass executive orders.
Well, not
It may
exactly.
be why they do
Not-
it, but it doesn't necessarily make good law or good policy.
Well,
and
it
that does come back
when
to the president.
You know
And when
what?
you're not
Doing
getting-
nothing is very bad policy.
But when you're not getting the comments
not
that you
always.
need, you have executive orders
You
that
have to
go
have
through.
comments for executive
Rick,
orders.
if he had had the feedback, he would know, for example, that
What?
these illegal immigrants are going to get taxes.
And we got to end it there, guys.
Well, no, he probably wouldn't have, but I get your point on it.
That's our last word. So coming up next, religious leaders are coming out ISIS for what they are, Islamic fanatics. Why doesn't the president follow suit? This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV from New York City.
According to the Pew study, 78% of Muslims reject jihad, but a whopping 22% do not. 22%, if you look at the statistics and compare it to the world's Muslim population, that would be a larger amount than all of the Axis powers combined that fought against the Allies in World War II. That is a pandemic. That's a world catastrophe, and I would not use the word random. I think it's a mistake. It has a name. It's called Islamic Fundamentalism.
And welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, along with Rick Unger, Heather Hansen, and the Rabbi Brad Hirschfeld. That was Rabbi Marvin Hier, on CNN, making the point that the White House will not call violence by ISIS and Al-Qaeda based on some degree of religion. Rabbi Hier pointed to a Pew study from 2013 that asked Muslims around the world whether attacks on civilians were justified. These numbers are quite interesting. Globally, 72% of Muslims said violence against civilians is never justified. And in the U.S., 81% of Muslims oppose such violence. Wow, love to meet those 19% of Muslims in the U.S. who do believe violence against civilians. Boy, they must be real peaches, huh? Anyway, about 14% of Muslims, of those surveyed outside the U.S., and 8% of Muslims in the U.S. said violence against civilians is, quote, often or, quote, sometimes justified. Good Lord. Context and clarity is everything, so let's put this in a hard number. Roughly 210 million Muslims believe violence is sometimes or often justified around the world. Wow. Obviously, President Obama doesn't believe that Pew poll.
But it is absolutely true that I reject a notion that somehow that creates a religious war, because the overwhelming majority of Muslims reject that interpretation of Islam. They don't even recognize it as being Islam. And I think that for us to be successful in fighting this scourge, it's very important for us to align ourselves with the 99.9% of Muslims who are looking for the same thing we're looking for.
Slightly different number. And Cardinal Dolan from New York City wrote an op-ed in the New York Post that said, and I quote, "These aren't sporadic attacks. This is part of an orchestrated fanaticism, an ideology that sees Christianity, Judaism, and any religion of peace as the enemy." So Brad, let's start with you. ISIS capturing and beheading 21 Coptic Christians, killing Jews, and killing peaceful Muslims seems like a religious war to me.
Because it is. Here's the thing, Joe. That 99.9% is absurd. There are more than 0.1% of Muslims under arms today fighting for various fanatical causes. That does not mean, and this is really the problem we have people who understand we are at war with a strain of Islam. And the only way you can fight a war against a religious ideology is to appreciate that. That doesn't mean we have to use our religious traditions or better versions of Islam to go to war. But not to name it is to begin to lose the battle before you take the field. On the other hand, we have people who think that that percentage, and Pew's numbers are usually pretty reliable, so we're talking about a number of people equal roughly to the population of the United States, to put it in real terms. They say, oh, no, that's all of Islam. And so what you end up with is a dangerously naive position that could get a lot of us dead, or an overtly Islamophobic position which actually will not let us engage the real problem we've got. We need to look at those numbers and admit religion is a part of this, no matter how uncomfortable that is, and it begins right with what the President said. The people who do not recognize within the Muslim community that those are Muslims is because they're fighting out a religious war themselves about what qualifies as Islam. We're actually bystanders. Let's be clear, as many Christians and Jews are murdered by these forces every year, over 100,000 Muslims are killed by their own brethren every year. That's the really mind-boggling thing. I get it. I'm saying this as a rabbi, as a Jew, lived in Israel, the whole thing. You want to kill some Jews and Christians? The truth is, the numbers, as horrific as they are not as mind-bogglingly terrifying. Is how does a people murder 100,000 of its own every single year? If they solve that, we'll be able to get to the Jews and Christians who are being murdered. But that's the internal fight that has to be fought, no matter how uncomfortable it is within Islam and outside of Islam.
Rick, I know this is a passionate topic for you as well.
It's a problematic topic, and the reason I wish that the White House would get around to calling it Islamic terrorism is so we can stop having conversations like this and start talking about the real issue. You say exactly, Rabbi, but you just took that time to have the same conversation that all the conservatives want to have that will do absolutely nothing to make those evil you-know-what's dead.
No, that's you're wrong.
No, I am right, because you can't fight a war without the White House calling it what you want them to call it. I don't care.
Right.
We
can go we have to have this conversation until there's a movement that's willing to own it.
This conversation is a distraction.
But
no, it's not.
Speaking of conversation, Heather, jump in.
Knowledge is power. You need to. You
need
to know your enemy. You need to know.
Who doesn't know?
But you need to talk about it.
Excuse me. Who doesn't know?
The leader of the most powerful nation in the world is telling the world that's not our fight.
And you really think that he doesn't know? Is that what you want to say?
Well, now you're calling the president a liar. I won't go that far.
Are you saying that the president doesn't know that he's fighting? He's not lying.
No, he doesn't know what he's fighting.
Wait. I just asked a really simple question. Yes or no?
He doesn't know what he's fighting.
He doesn't know what he's fighting.
No.
You believe that too, Heather?
Here's a better question.
I believe him. I take him at his word.
You think the president's a moron?
I think he knows, but I think he should say it. I think
that's a different issue.
No, but you don't want him
of course.
to say it.
I don't know if he knows. Then he has to assume he's a liar.
I do want him to say it. I said over and over again I want him to say it, but only because it's a distraction.
Let's switch from understanding to perhaps, Heather, underestimating. Would that be a better word to use here with what the president is doing?
I think that's the impression he's giving. Whether or not he is truly underestimating, we had someone yesterday talking about special ops being actually on the ground. We may not know everything that he's doing, but he's giving the impression of underestimating, and that is driving.
That's true.
That is driving the misunderstanding. What I don't understand is they fight with propaganda. We do not respond. There was an article in the New York Times yesterday, I think you sent it, about
today's
the
paper, actually. Right. We are not engaging the enemy on its terms, and it's very hard to fight the war you want to fight. So whether it's underestimating or misestimating, I believe in taking the president at his word when I agree with him. which is often, and when I don't, which is almost as often. Right now, he is making a fatal decision for another reason. When you underestimate the force of totalitarian or fanatical Islam, you actually give rise to the people who say he's not telling the truth, and that's all of Islam. So ironically, with the best of intentions, the president is actually feeding Islamophobia by not naming the real problem, containing it, and fighting it.
Let's do a public service. Let's acknowledge that the president started out with the strategy to deplete them and then destroy them, and it didn't work. Okay, we didn't deplete them. Their numbers are growing. Let's talk about that, and then let's talk about the next part, which is didn't work, Chief. Let's now find a strategy that
will.
Except that we're talking about his wording and not that.
I have a feeling that we're going to be talking about this a lot more in the weeks and months ahead. Anyway, coming up next in the wrap, are unions beginning to lose faith in the president and Democrats? This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back, everybody. I am your TV Sherpa, Joe Concha, along with Rick Unger, Heather Hansen, and Rabbi Brad Hirschfield. You are the Sherpettes. Well, we have one Sherpet in the middle.
That's
there you go. No, we're the burden. That's what the Sherpas deal with. We're his burden. And don't you ever forget it.
Wooed unions. He was running when he was running for election twice, but now are those same unions beginning to lose faith in the president and Democrats overall? Well, according to Mr. Obama's agenda, from Obamacare to the Keystone Pipeline, private sector unions feel like they're getting the short end of the stick. You don't believe me? Well, listen to Terry O'Sullivan. He is the president of Labor's International Union of North America, protesting the president over said Keystone Pipeline.
We support the president. We elected him once, we re-elected him, and we still support him. But we need politicians that quit licking their fingers and sticking them in the air to see which way the political winds are blowing. Because, brothers and sisters, from my view, the political winds are blowing in the favor of working men and women. But the end result is a regulatory review for this pipeline. No other pipeline's ever gone through this. And the end result is we're still standing here today at a rally when we shouldn't have to be complaining about Keystone. We should have building trades, men and women working. But we don't, because it's all about politics. The end result is they had a vote in the House and it passed on Keystone. They had a vote in the Senate and it passed on Keystone. There was a poll yesterday, 75% of Americans support building Keystone.
Well, I love the passion, but I can't go orange there. I just something about it. Anyway, and I love the Broncos. So that was 9 months ago. And last week, Sean McGarvey, he's the president of North America's building trades unions, continued to pressure the president to allow the Keystone Pipeline to proceed.
We urge the president of the United States to put our men and women back to work across the length of this pipeline as soon as possible. We urge the president to sign the bill.
Rick Unger, this would appear to be an opportunity for Republicans to woo unions, bring them over in 2016.
You know, people don't realize that Republicans have had union support before. The Teamsters at a time were very much with the Republicans.
And Reagan probably to a certain extent.
Not as much, no.
Those weren't the Blue Dogs?
No. But that said, this is a false issue. And by the way, I'm not against the Keystone Pipeline. I think we've wasted an enormous amount of time talking about one of thousands of pipelines.
I'm not surprised, because when I was at your house, you had that Keystone beer.
Yeah, I had, that's right, that's right. But I'll tell you what, I had long conversations with the economist who works for the company who's building or wants to build the pipeline. The number of jobs it will create is not something for the unions to get all shook up about. They're playing politics the same way everybody else has played politics with this. It's a silly argument. You're talking about a couple of thousand jobs that will last for as long as it takes to build the pipeline. This is not going to be a big deal to the unions.
You know what I can see in 2016? Because Hillary Clinton's so good at this. She'll be for the Keystone Pipeline.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Just like, you know, I've evolved on the issue.
State Department approved it. It was the president who wouldn't.
Yeah.
She was running the State Department.
Okay, but she hasn't come out and been for it. I can just see a 4-mile-an-hour wind just blowing her in that direction.
Well, which makes sense. It's good politics. But I think you're going to see a difference between the GOP and the Democrats as far as public unions and private unions, because private unions have to make money or jobs vanish. So they have a very different agenda than the public unions.
But keep in mind, you can count on 1 foot how many private unions are left.
Right.
It's a small group, and even if it's a small number of jobs, it's someone's job.
That's right.
And that's what I find really troubling here. I get we can have the debate about alternative energy and not and all the rest of that, but in the meantime, when we know that with as much as the numbers have recovered, it's not significant with full-time, meaningful work. If it's your family, if it's bread on your table, it seems to me, even if it's, quote, only a few thousand jobs, that's pretty sacred stuff.
So you're supportive then of the jobs bill that the administration's been trying to get through for 6 years now?
I'm supportive of anything that actually does create real jobs and nurtures them. No, we don't know if it does. That's the thing. No, that's the politics of it.
Well, then I guess
which
we
is
don't
why
know
you
that
went
the
there.
Keystone Pipeline does either.
No, we do,
now.
because even the people inside who you talked to said
a
couple thousand.
jobs, yeah.
Right. You know
thousand
what?
is more
If I have a
than
couple
none.
thousand people outside the
you
studio or
actually-
unemployed,
you're
I
actually-
don't want to stand in front of them and say, I'm the guy who
really
took
wanna
bread out
say-
of your kid's mouth.
You really want to say that a full jobs bill wouldn't employ 2,000, which would be the greatest failure of all time?
I have
You're really going to make that the basis?
I have no idea, but I don't know why you'd want to blend them. Unless you're willing to say right now, you'll combine the two, come out in favor of Keystone and every other private deal, and then we'll talk. Great.
I
Convince
don't
the
have a
president
problem
we're in
with it.
business.
Heather is
Keystone's
like
gonna
an
be-
NHL referee right now.
I think Keystone's going to be a non-issue. I think the bigger issue is going to be who is going to court the unions and how they're going to court them for the next election coming up. Because there's a fine line there as to where you can get in and how you can make it work.
Keystone's made a total fool of me because I keep predicting every 4 months that the president is going to sign this in 30 days. And every time I've been wrong.
So what do you think's holding them back?
Environmentalists.
He was
are
waiting
holding
for the
them
courts.
back.
He was hoping
Yeah, he
that the
probably
court was
was. The
going to
courts
make the
He
would
decision.
wanted, of course, to do it for him
That's
effectively,
right.
and he
That's
couldn't.
right.
And this is when,
Yeah.
any time when ideology trumps practical effectiveness, we have a problem.
It's not
And it's
And
a
that's what he
delay.
did
It's
here.
an
It's
unnecessary
not
delay.
ideology.
It's ideology.
It's a
And
lot of
on
money
that
from
note,
environmentalists.
we have to go.
That's not
Coming up
ideology, that's
next,
politics.
it's time for some potluck with no Keystone beer, we can assure you. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap, everybody. It's time for some potluck. It's my favorite part of the show. It's where each of us brings a story to the table, just like you would bring a dish to a potluck dinner that I'm actually going to this weekend for the first time. True story. Anyway, up first, Rick Unger, what did you cook up tonight?
I can't wait to hear what the rabbi has to say about this one.
The rabbi, in big trouble. Okay.
I can't wait. Okay.
Dish it up.
So the Washington Post reports yesterday that somebody in Bibi Netanyahu's office, probably Bibi Netanyahu, has been leaking details of the negotiation between Iran and the United States working towards a nuclear agreement of some sort. That's ugly. If that's true, and I'm saying if it's true because we don't know yet that it is. If it's true, that is such a breach of confidence that I find it terrifying in the long run. Look, and making it even worse, as the story goes, they're only leaking the parts that make it look really bad. They're not leaking the parts that would go, oh, well, maybe that's not such a bad idea.
Can we rewind as far as your thoughts on Netanyahu, President Obama, Congress, talking to Iran and cutting Israel out of those talks? I just want to know, it's like a prequel.
Well,
Let's
now
go back
you
to the
know
beginning.
why they cut them out. They're leaking
No.
it.
Here's the thing. This could all be titled men behaving badly. And here I mean both Netanyahu and President
Well put.
Obama.
Well put.
And it's got to get past this. They are both behaving abysmally. The truth is, I don't believe Bibi should have ever accepted the invitation to come here. But then there is the obligation, when you're the stronger power, in that case that is the United States and that is the president, to allow the fumble that Bibi committed to become a political football in a relationship that has been sacrosanct for the history of the State of Israel. The truth is, both of these men are going to live to regret what they're doing, not because the relationship between the U.S. and Israel will end up suffering. The truth is, it's the most dangerous region in the world, and the United States has one great friend that actually looks very much like the United States. But that they have allowed that relationship to devolve to this. They together.
You blame the president.
No. I blame the president more for one reason. When you have more power, you have a greater obligation. I blame Bibi more because of my own personal anxiety and anger at him. But when you have more power in any relationship, you have a greater level of moral accountability. And so Bibi fumbled, and the president spiked that fumble in a really bad way.
I'm with you 95%.
Because Rick, you're friends with Stan Lee, obviously. Isn't it? With great power comes great responsibility.
There you go.
Right,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Simple. Heather, jump in.
But I think that the men
our
behaving
Spider-Man
badly
moment.
is exactly the case, where it's like he didn't get the invitation to the prom, and now there's like a fight back and forth, and it's a little game between them that they are going to, but they are going to regret it when time passes and look back on this as some trivial little thing when we have so many bigger things going on right now.
I agree with you that they will both regret it. I think your statement is correct. But it's not a trivial little thing. When you disrespect, not just Bibi, I put as much blame, if not more, on Speaker Boehner. When you disrespect the office of the presidency, forget who's currently in it, that's a big deal.
Yes, it is a real issue relative to the presidency. I don't disagree with that. But then, if you really are, it's a big deal because you're the bigger guy, then step up and say to the be the bigger guy, say, look, you were wrong to accept this. I'm going to meet with you. By the way, tell them I don't like you. I don't agree with you. I'm going to meet with you because of how important this relationship is to the world.
I can buy that.
And on that note, what's our second course?
Here's the thing. I saw yesterday, given that it was President's Day, they did a poll as to who should, if anybody, be the next face on Mount Rushmore. 21% of Democrats said President Obama should be the next face, and I was flabbergasted. I mean, if you think about the faces on there, oh my gosh.
So
you've got George
He's
Washington.
a lot thinner than the other guys.
He's looking good.
George Washington is there because he represents foundation. Then you've got Thomas Jefferson, he represents growth. You've got Teddy Roosevelt, he represents development. And you've got Abraham Lincoln, who represents
too many Republicans.
Perseveration. And what is Obama going to represent? I mean, if anything, many would say he would represent the decline of all of those things.
Well, I wouldn't get carried away, but I agree.
Many would. Yeah, I mean, listen, leave it alone. If you're not going to leave it alone, then it needs to be somebody who has borne the test of time and history.
Who do you think it should be?
If anybody, FDR.
I'm with you.
So I actually love the statistic for a different reason. It helps explain the iconic status which the president has for a bunch of Democrats that explains why oftentimes things that ought not be overlooked get overlooked.
That's right.
It really explains a deeper psychology. And by the way, I get it, first African-American president, there are mythic overtones to this. So it's not about being angry, but to be able to own that and go, wow, if he really is iconic for us in that way, maybe we should be listening to others who don't always agree with us to get a different picture on things.
Who would you put up there?
Oh boy, I was hoping to dodge that one. You know what? I could go with FDR, and I'll take heat on one for that. I could go with Ronald Reagan, and I'll take heat on that.
Reagan's another option.
I think actually we don't know right now, and that's a very serious question about how Americans regard the presidency. But I would love to see that polled and see where people are on it.
Heather's got it right. FDR.
FDR.
He saved this country.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you're going to add to those names and what they stand for, he would be the right fit.
Okay. Well, I would actually go, believe it or not, with President Clinton. But unfortunately, he's already been, yes, but he's already been taken. He will have, apparently, his face up on the mountain at Orgy Island.
It's such bad material.
Up next, more potluck. And then it's time for Yay or Nay. Stay tuned. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. We are in the middle of our potluck, where each of us brings a story to the table like you bring a dish to potluck dinner. And Rabbi Brad, you are up.
Okay, split dish tonight. 50 years ago today, Voice of America goes live, broadcasting to the Soviet Union, and very much related to the media war that's going on with ISIS and what this country is going to need to do, take a much more sophisticated approach to being in play, not only with bombs and bullets, which tragically we're going to need a lot of for a while, I think, but also in, and I get it, the overtones of Vietnam, not simple, the hearts and minds of the larger Muslim world. If, in fact, and I think it's true, the overwhelming majority, say 85% of Muslims, know that ISIS is out of control and must be stopped by any means necessary. They also need to know that there is a larger culture that will support them. And we're not doing a very good job of that right now, and we need to do it a lot better.
Do you think when you hear comparisons to the Third Reich in 1939 Germany, and I hear this a lot more now, it's pretty accurate, I would say.
Meaning what? What do you mean?
When you compare ISIS to what was going on in
yeah,
Europe
I think
in
this
the
is a
late 1930s.
totalitarian regime which has a redemptive view of the world that believes if we killed enough of the right people, the world would actually be a better place. The path to greatness for them is murdering those who get in the way, which is why in a perverse way, they experience this as a deeply positive thing. That goes back to why I was preaching the religiosity. It was very important.
Do you believe
until you understand that psychology, it's very hard to win it.
Go ahead.
I want to ask the Voice of America, that analogy.
Yeah.
What is the equivalent now? Because everyone across the world now has access with Twitter and social media. So, with Voice of America, we were bringing our music to Russia, and they were thrilled about that. But now they have all of that.
We're going to need to figure that out.
Twitter.
We'll have to use Twitter and use Facebook and use a million different means. And by the way, in the first year of VOA, it was terrible.
Right.
Even the people in Russia who appreciated it said the content isn't very good. So I don't mind if we're not great at it for the next 12 months, but let's at least do it. Get in the game. That's my plea for tonight. Get in the game.
So a big thumbs up on your original point. I liked it. Question though, do you think that what ISIS is up to is putting the world on a crash course towards Armageddon? Is that what they're purposely trying to do, you think?
I don't know if they think of it that way because the redemptive schemes of Islam and this part of it don't necessarily work in that way. They're not waiting for some other war. This is their war to fight. And that way it's very, very different than other conceptions. They're involved in this war because they actually think they're going to purify the world. They asked the head of ISIS this summer, what about Israel and Jews? And, oh no, we'll get to them. Right. But first we have to purify our nation. Right? This is a war for the purification of the world. And that, I don't care who's prosecuting it, it's scary. And understanding the roots of that kind of war is the only way to win it.
And countering it. Countering it with some sort of propaganda. And we've got to figure out a way to do that. This summit that they're having this week at the White House, they've got to figure out a way to do that. For the younger people, the young men that are joining up in this war, they have to be the focus.
But that's a pretty small, negligent number. The best way to counter it?
Yeah, but what
both.
It's a both-and approach for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, you talk about young people and you talk about the Voice of America. Let me be the Voice of America for a moment. And the 40 million homes we now reach here on Newsmax, on Dish and DirecTV and Verizon Fios and online, and it's really fun. Anyway, point being, speaking of online, yesterday was my birthday. Yes, 37 was seventh heaven. Wife made a wonderful dish at home, some nice steak, a potato thing with bacon and cheese in it and all that fun stuff. It was tremendous. And then I checked my Facebook page, and I actually had, and there's my Facebook page right there. There it goes, happy birthday. And oh, thank God the names were blurred out. But mostly the same thing over and over again. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, Joe. A lot of exclamation points, right? And we go down and down and down. Overall, I got 197 posts on Facebook and LinkedIn when you combine the two, and a couple of text messages as well. What's that?
Bragging, are we?
No, I'm not bragging.
Oh.
And as you'll see, I got back to every single person on there. Because what happens in Facebook, Heather, you know this, people will write back the next day, thank you for the birthday wishes. I am so blessed to have friends like you. Oh, no. I did what Ringo used to do. I responded to every single message that I got. But you know what I didn't get? 0.0 calls. Aww. Not one, except for my friends. My Aunt Maria called, and that was nice, and my sister called, right? But no one, as far as friends, can pick up the phone, and I realized that communication is dead. Verbal communication.
I called you yesterday, didn't I?
You did.
See?
But you wanted your headphones back. Or something. It wasn't about...
I don't know if it's dead, but I don't know if it's dead, but there is a grammar to this, and it's going to work better for different people. And the truth is, and God, I feel old, and you say 37, but okay, I'm younger than you. So who isn't? There is a grammar to it, and I think probably for our age and up, we're all immigrants in that digital world and experience the lack of a voice call very differently. Yeah. If you got my 21 or 19-year-old daughter, they go, I don't need the voice call. Right. I read that grammar there and I feel it. Right. So it's really what you need.
And when you try to call them, they all screen your calls. Right. No one picks up the phone anymore.
People think you're weird. I mean, especially in the dating world, if you start calling up a girl or a guy that you want to go out with, they definitely think you're weird.
We're at the 30-year anniversary, by the way, of the Breakfast Club, and if they did that movie again, instead of them all talking and getting to know each other and getting high in a library, they'd just be texting the entire time. The movie would be over in 10 minutes. Anyway, what crazy stories did we dig up today? Find out next when we do Yay or Nay. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV. Welcome back to the Daily Wrap, everyone. It's time for Yay or Nay. I'm going to share some pretty out there news stories, and we will weigh in with a yay or a nay. This is quite simple. Okay, up first. Would you spend $120,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan? Yes, real estate is expensive here, but come on! The pricey one-bedroom is located in the uber-fancy Pierre Hotel and offers breathtaking views of Central Park. Have I piqued your interest yet? No? Okay. What about if I told you if this apartment came with a butler service and a chauffeur-driven Jaguar, pet care for your four-legged friends, chandeliers, curated art, twice a day housekeeping. Boy, I could use that at home. Yearly cost for all of this luxury, $1.4 million. Is it worth living in a one-bedroom apartment regardless of all those amenities, Rabbi? Yay or nay?
If the answer is yay, I wish I could have that problem, then yay 100%. If the answer is can I imagine any setting in which that makes sense no matter how much money you have, nay.
I gotta say yay. What do you need space for here? You've got so much to do, so much to see, and now you have a chauffeur to take you there, and you have all kinds of people butlering your house. I'm all for it.
It's a big nay. Skip the amenities, I'll buy the place. I'm not going to rent it.
I love it.
I am absolutely a nay, because between the dog and the 15-month-old daughter at home and my wife, well, then again, the butler service, boy, that's good. I'm back to a yay. Can you switch return? I just did it. Good point. No, trust me, I do. Can you get a prize for catching a wedding bouquet? Well, Utah resident, her name is Jamie Jackson, is trying to do just that. Jackson submitted an application Wednesday to Guinness Book of World Records saying she caught, get this, 46 bouquets at 100 or so weddings she has attended since 1996. That's a lot of friends. She considered herself a good luck charm of sorts, since 44 of the 46 brides are still married, although Jackson remains single herself. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Yay or nay, Rick Unger?
I don't care.
Apathy? Can you? Is that an answer? Is it yay, nay, or apathy?
I don't care.
He's abstaining.
Yay, nay.
You've never caught a bouquet. That's your problem.
You have no idea. I'm all for it. I think it is the worst experience. You feel absolutely ridiculous. So she turns it into a competitive endeavor. I like it. It's a yay.
I'm a yay as long as it doesn't get in the way of her actually having a meaningful relationship with one person that she's looking for. If the sport of this gets away from having a real relationship, not so much. Also, she admits to jumping on kids when she does it. So I'd like her to dial back the intensity. So I'm a yay, but stop jumping on 7-year-olds to get the flowers.
Maybe all the guys who want to take her out are allergic to that kind of flower.
Then I would go for different flowers, not different guys. But that's just me.
Okay, we work this out next.
I'm actually a nay, but am I allowed to answer?
Oh, I forgot.
2 nays for your one apathy.
That was your birthday.
Because obviously the good luck is supposed to be when you catch it, you're the next to get married. And that just ain't happening for Miss Jackson for whatever reason. Anyway, the White House is hosting a 3-day summit to examine ways to counter violent extremism, but they are not announcing which countries are attending, nor did they mention anything about religious extremism. Is the White House just playing politics, Heather Hansen? Yay or nay?
I think that it started off as politics, and now they're trying to put some meat in it. They are talking it up a lot more this week, but they just don't have the planning in place to make it really happen. So I think it started off yay, and now it's nay.
Rick, apathy, or are you going to actually answer this time?
Nay, and I do know some of the people that are going to be there. They're purposely not disclosing it. It should be a meaningful conference.
Interesting. Rabbi?
I also know some other people. I hope it will be, but I'm going to give it, if a nay means I think they're making a big mistake, not because they're having it, but how they're having it, then nay. I hope I'm wrong. This is when I really, really want to be wrong, but boy, I don't think so.
I think you mean yay.
I'll go either way.
I heard that about you.
There you go.
Fascinating.
It's not that late.
I don't nay. I don't nay, because until I hear what actually comes out of the summit, I'm simply speculating, whoever does that in cable news. Anyway, finally tonight, a 20-year-old college student attended a bull carnival over in Spain. This wasn't in Pamplona, where I actually was once, and those streets are thin, over the weekend, and was severely injured after being tossed around and gored, beaten by a bull. You see him there, actually, it looks like losing his pants.
Yeah.
Just how injured was he? Well, he's currently recovering from a 3-hour operation in which they had to repair, get this, a 16-inch wound to his thigh, as well as injuries to his sphincter and his back muscles. No joke. You guys are laughing. This guy's on the verge of death. That's nice. Taunting bulls on purpose, Rabbi. Yay or nay?
I'm more concerned about the guy with the sphincter wound than I am about the bull. Right? I'm not a big fan of taunting animals, but right now I think prayers and thoughts should be directed at that young man's suffering. That's just me.
Very good. Well spoken, Rabbi.
You know what? Eleanor Roosevelt said, do one thing every day that scares you, so I'm usually a yay for all of those things. That particular thing I wouldn't do.
I think he listened to his mother and had clean underwear on.
Not after the
That
garden.
way.
Wasn't wearing boxers. That's true.
You know what? You do something stupid like that, it's going to happen. So, nay.
Yeah, nay. As I said, having seen Pamplona, you can't get away. Once they're on you, they're on you, and
crazy.
there are better
I've
ways
been
to
there
spend
too.
your time as a 20-year-old.
You want to stretch yourself, scare yourself? Yes, it's important.
That's not
No
good,
way.
yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight, everybody. And thank you for tuning in. And be sure to catch us tomorrow night. Yes, we will be back at 6 p.m. Eastern Time for more Daily Wrap. I'd like to thank my panel for being here. Rick Unger,
Always a pleasure.
Heather Hansen, and Rabbi, please do come back.
I will.
Just
Pleasure.
Bring a little more passion next time. You're really muted.
I like the rabbi.
You were so quiet.
Anyway, right here on Newsmax TV, 6 p.m. from New York City. I'm Joe Concha. Thank you for joining us once again, and good night, everybody.